If you're wondering, we're just waiting to have a quorum. Okay, we ready?
I'm ready.
I'll call to order the March 15th meeting of the Wilmington City Council. I'd like to welcome all of those with us this evening, as well as anyone at home that might be streaming or watching us on TV. I'll note that Mayor Sappho, Mr. Barnett, and Mr. Waddell are all out of town on city business and have excused absences. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Rivenbark if he would give our invocation, and if everyone will please rise and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I don't know if Reverend Barnett's listening, but don't y'all tell him I botched this up if you talk to him. If you'd bow your heads with me. Dear Lord, thank you for this opportunity to come before the people of Wilmington, the people that we serve. We ask for travel mercies for our 3 members that are not here, that they come back home safely. And we just ask for your wisdom and guidance as we maneuver through the agenda tonight and the people's business to do the right thing all the time. We ask this in the name of Jesus, our Savior. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have an unusual situation this evening, but at this time, I'd like to ask if there's a motion to enter into a closed session pursuant to provisions of GS 143-318.11A5 in order for the City Council to, number 1, instruct staff regarding the city's negotiating position concerning the possible acquisition of real property located at 115 North 3rd Street. Do I have a motion?
Yes.
Let me see that in front of me.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Rivenbark, second by Mr. Spears. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And that passes unanimously. We will now stand in closed session. The closed session will be held in these council chambers, and now, of course, we have to ask all members of the public and non-essential city staff to exit council chambers. At the end of the closed session, council will reopen its public session and invite anyone that wishes to return to council chambers before any further business is conducted and the meeting is adjourned. Now, yeah, well, surfing. It's here to talk about surfing. We are now back into open session. The council instructed staff regarding the city's negotiating position concerning the possible acquisition of real property located at 115 North 3rd Street. No other action was taken. At this time, we have several presentations, and the first one, I'd like to recognize Mr. Rivenbark to present a proclamation to Mr. John Russ, the president of the 2022 Azalea Festival. Mr. Rivenbark?
Thank you. John, can you come up, Allison? This is the third string presenting this one, and the Mayor Pro Tem has been kind enough to allow me to read this proclamation. Azalea Festival is very near and dear to my heart, Ms. Penny's heart. We were both past presidents. John Russ is the president this year, and this is the 75th. I guess that's better than golden, you know. So, and Allison Barringer is our executive director of the Azalea Festival, and we've got 2 years pin up of celebrating the Azalea Festival. This is going to be a big one, and the city of Wilmington wants to make note of that. Whereas the city of Wilmington is pleased to host the 75th annual North Carolina Azalea Festival, and whereas the city of Wilmington has been celebrating spring in our community for 75 years, making this a historic year for all of our region, and whereas this proud local tradition draws visitors to our port city year after year to enjoy the beauty of nature, entertainment, a street fair, parade, and riverfront attractions. And whereas in addition to the stunning floral displays, the North Carolina Azalea Festival celebrates the arts and history of Wilmington, and whereas the North Carolina Azalea Festival promotes our tourism industry and encourages visitors to explore what makes our region a wonderful place to live from the river to the coast. Now, therefore, on behalf of the city of Wilmington, I, Bill Sappho, Mayor of the city of Wilmington, do proclaim April 6 through 10, 2022, in honor of the North Carolina Azalea Festival season and commend its observance to all citizens. I hope that you all will go out and take part in any and all of the events. There's so much more than what I just named out. They do a good job all year long for all of us. So I hope you will take advantage of it. And I want to present this to you. John, would you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the city for their continued support. Thanks to everybody. We're looking forward to a great festival, April 6th through the 10th, and I hope to see everybody there. Thanks again.
Allison, you have anything to say?
Yeah, come join us April 6th through the 10th. It's our 75th year. We want to thank you and City Council, city staff. We have some festival volunteers in this room, past presidents, and we want everyone to be involved. So there's plenty of ways to get involved. Please come join us.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, y'all.
So I now have a proclamation. In celebration of Arbor Day. And so Aaron Reese, our city arborist, will come up and receive this. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, now, therefore, I, Bill Sappho, Mayor of the City of Wilmington, and the entire City Council do hereby declare March 18th, 2022 as Arbor Day in the City of Wilmington, North Carolina. Would you like to say something?
Not much at this time, but I would just like to thank the City Council for their continued support of urban forestry within the city.
Thank you so much. And we are a tree city. We usually are awarded that. And trees are very important. As the mayor always says, in his stead, I will remind everybody how important trees are to Wilmington. And we had a tree study, and our tree canopy is as strong or stronger. I'll look over at Mr. Moten, who is shaking his head, is stronger. I think it's almost 50%. It's something like 48, 49%, which is really fabulous for North Carolina and for the nation. So thank you for all your hard work. We appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll move on with the regular agenda. We have the consent agenda. Item C1, there's just one item on the consent agenda, the approval of the minutes of the special council meeting budget work session and several other meetings. Is there there's a motion to approve the consent agenda by Mr. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Spears. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And, right, it's just the four of us are voting, just so people understand we have a quorum with the four of us here. So that passes unanimously. The next item of business is our public information, and this evening we have Mr. Skipper Funderburg, who is here with us this evening to speak about the proclamation by the North Carolina governor of October 2021 as Surfing Month. Mr. Funderburg, please come up to the microphone there.
Good evening, and I'm here this evening to, first of all, I wanted to thank our national and state and international founding mothers and fathers of the United States based on the critical and substantial roles they have played in the formation of our country's new government. And by state of North Carolina, Governor Roy Cooper, Surfing Month. This is my 7th proclamation. And we are proclaiming, whereas North Carolina was a pioneer of U.S. mainland competitive surfing, the April 2nd, 1910 edition of Collier's Weekly includes a letter from a resident of Wrightsville Beach, the Honorable Burke Haywood Bridgers, Esquire, describing surfing. An announcement in the Wilmington Morning Star on June 30th, 1910 includes the mention of one of the earliest surfboard riding competitions in the mainland United States and direct communications with Alexander Hugh Ford, who appropriated the Hawaiian transcendent experience of surfing and changed it into an American competitive sport. And that first day was Labor Day. That was the celebration. Whereas along North Carolina, roughly 300-mile coastline continues to be a popular sport for residents and tourists of all skills, especially during this fall and surf conditions are most favorable. North Carolina has realized tremendous gains in market share during the last few decades in the recent surfing culture, and exponential gains and increasing revenue. Whereas in 2002, the UNC Wilmington Cape Fear Surfing Archive was founded by Funderburg, and due to the popularity of the archive exhibit, it was extended 2 years. The exhibit was spawning ground, and 2 permanent UNC Wilmington semester courses were developed: History of Surfing in North Carolina and the Physics of Surfing and Oceanography, to calculate the big wave riders of today. Whereas the 2020 North Carolina Surfing Hall of Fame inductions, North Carolina Water Sports Hall of Fame inductions, exhibits at UNC Wilmington and other landmarks pay homage to our surfing and water sport industry. In 2015, the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources unveiled a historical highway marker to honor pioneer East Coast surfing in Wrightsville Beach, the birthplace of competitive surfing on the American East Coast and the birthplace of American competitive surfing in the United States mainland in 1909. Whereas surfing subculture has spawned several reputable and worthy nonprofit charitable organizations with purposes ranging from surf camps for autism, hearing, visually impaired, wounded warriors, orphans, environmental protection, such as Indo-Jack Surf Charities, which featured on the Oprah Winfrey Network, focusing on a surfing safari to India, where Indo-Jack's influential surfers taught blind and abused orphan girls to surf. And their building was right on the surf, but they had never been out of the walls. Whereas North Carolinian Mason Heights Barnes is one of the world's most influential competitive big wave professional riders. His official partner with the World Surfing League to be the face of wave riding. And also, I wanted to say that I have partnered with the UNC Wilmington Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship to carry through forward. Whereas the state of North Carolina celebrates our state's long history and recognizes the benefits that active surfing culture brings to our state's economy and tourism industry. Now, therefore, we of North Carolina to hereby proclaim October 2021 Surfing Month in North Carolina and commend it to all citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Funderburg. I think we all learned something there. It's interesting. And that's our only speaker for this evening, so now we'll move to the next item of business, which is Public Hearing 1, PH1, which is an ordinance directing the housing inspector to vacate, close, and repair or demolish the dwelling at 313 Queen Street as unfit for human habitation pursuant to Article 5, Chapter 16 of the City Code, and directing that a notice be placed thereon prohibiting its use or occupancy. And at this time, I'll recognize our city manager, Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Brian Renner, our Chief Code Enforcement Officer, will overview this item for us.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
I think we got the presentation coming up here in a second. This one is 313 Queen Street. Here we have it's a vacant house. It's about 1,063 square feet. It was built in 1935. This is in the National Register District. It's not in the local. The property owners being another example of heir property here. We have had contact with some of the family. Theodore Corbett attended our hearing that we had, and it's my understanding is conversation with the family that this is definitely a tear down that the city is going to have to do. So keep that in mind as we go through this. So the initial inspection set this out on July 12th of 2021. We took that to hearing in November of 2021, and we spoke with some of the heirs at the hearing, and they wanted some time to get the family together to make a decision to probably demolish the house, which we'll see in a minute, and that expired March 3rd. So based on the condition of the house, we're expediting this one. Here we have the, that's a typo up there. The order expired March 3rd of this year, but the percentage that we have in our cost to rehab is 53%, with the tax value being $97,300. Those are the minimum housing code violations. We'll see when we get to the photos that it's pretty cut and dry. The house is actually taking a lien, and the roof is collapsed. It was like this when we took it to hearing, and it hasn't gotten any better since. So what we're looking at with the ordinance here is 30 days for us to move to demolish this. That's essentially just time for us to go through our bid processes and obtain a contract to demolish. The family member that I have been in contact with would like to demolish it themselves, but without the agreement of the other two family members, they're not comfortable doing that. So they've asked us to do it for them.
Can I clarify that? Two of the family members would like to demolish it, but some of the others don't agree to that?
There's three heirs that we know of. One has been in contact with us and attended our hearing, and I've been in contact with him and his daughter. And then there's two other heirs that we've had no contact with.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. I thought you said they were split. Some wanted to tear it down, some didn't.
Yeah, it's my understanding from talking with the one family member who will talk to us is that they all can't get on the same page.
I got you.
Yeah. And that would be it.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Mr. Renner? Okay, great. Thank you. Is the property owner here? At this time, I'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone in the public that would like to come and speak on this item, either in support or opposition to the proposed ordinance. Is there anyone in the public that would like to come and speak? Seeing none, I ask the city clerk if she has had any correspondence. No, she indicates that no, there have not been any comments.
I just
Mr.
had a comment.
Robinbart?
Mr. Joy, once this house is raised and we have a clean, shovel-ready, buildable lot, we market it and sell it to somebody to come along and build a house?
The city cannot. We don't actually seize and take possession of it. We just demolish it and we put a lien against the property. So if it's ever sold, we will recoup our investment. Often the taxes are what really will drive, or the unpaid taxes, I should say, that would drive a public auction. And North Carolina cities are allowed to actually acquire it in the public auction. We would be a bidder like anyone else, so we could acquire it through that process. We customarily have not, but we could, but that's the only way.
So like some foreclosures, you're either your first, second, third, fourth, fifth place. In this case, what is this Wilmington standing if the property is sold? Are there other liens against the property? Do we know that?
Normally the tax lien, go right ahead.
The only money owed on this house is like $80 on the tax bill. It was an error probably.
So they've been taking care of the taxes, it sounds like.
Yeah. The family member that I've been in contact with, he was actually living there for a while and was re-roofing the house when this happened.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions and concerns? At this point, I will close the public hearing and ask for the wishes of council. We have a motion by Mr. Anderson and a second by Mr. Robinbart. All in favor of that signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that, I believe, is unanimous. I can't see anything on here. Mr. Robinbart seconded that if you're, okay. There we go. All in favor signify by saying aye. That is unanimous. Is there a motion to waive second reading? There's a motion by Mr. Anderson, a second by Mr. Spears. All in favor of waiving second reading, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And that also, I believe, passes unanimously. At this point, we'll move to our resolutions. We have item number 1, which is a resolution modifying the summary plan document for participation by eligible retirees in the Employee Health Care Plan. And at this time, I'll recognize our city manager, Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Al Ragland, our interim deputy city manager, will overview this item for us.
Madam Pro Tem, Council, good evening. There are two changes. One is substantive, and the other one is more of a typographical correction from the original document. Today, retirees pay their premiums a month in advance of coverage. And what we're suggesting is that they go to paying the month of coverage. So in other words, March, they've already paid for April. Okay, coverage. And so what we're saying is they will go month of coverage. So in other words, they would not be billed in April, and they would start being billed again in May for May coverage. Okay? The second item is just a typographical mistake that was made in the original document, which said it was effective January 1, 2009. The actual date was supposed to be July 1, 2009, which was approved by council at the June 6, 2009 meeting. So that's just a typographical error that we need to correct.
Are there any questions for Mr. Ragland? Mr. Rivenbark?
So everything that we're doing here tonight is just house cleaning?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? Thank you. We have a motion to approve by Mr. Anderson, a second by Mr. Spears. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And that passes unanimously. And that is a resolution, so it only needs one vote. R2 is a resolution supporting the supplemental request for additional surface transportation block grant program direct attributable funding for the Wilmington Multimodal Transportation Center, Phase 1. And again, I'll recognize our city manager, Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Mike Kozlowski, our executive director of the Wilmington MPO, will address this item.
Good evening, Mayor
Welcome.
Pro Tem, members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to be before you tonight. The city and the MPO have been jointly funding the proposed building renovation at 525 North 4th Street, identified as the Wilmington Multimodal Transportation Center Phase 1B. This building is planned to be the future office space for the MPO. Benefits of the reuse of this building are the building is a historic structure that was built in 1894 and is in the historic district. It would be dedicated office space for the MPO and assist the city with their space needs. It would rehab a damaged building that was damaged during Hurricane Florence and also be used for a transportation purpose. It's important to point out that once the building's renovated, it would continue to be a city asset, and the city would continue to own and maintain the building and the ground. The city held a bid opening on January 27th, and the lowest bidder was $647,319 over the engineer's estimate and greater than the overall project budget. Due to continued inflation, a 15% contingency, funding for design and contract administration, furniture, and DOT fees, we have estimated the need in additional funds in the amount of $2,341,836. The proposal is to utilize MPO direct attributable funding to cover 80% of the cost, with the remaining 20% required local match. The local match is in the amount of $468,367. There's currently $136,781 in an unallocated fund in the city's project budget. Therefore, the local match needed is actually $331,586. New Hanover County has indicated a willingness to consider funding 50% of the $331,586, with the city and county each contributing $165,793. The county funding will be considered at the Board of Commissioners March 21st meeting. Staff is requesting the city approve the contribution of $165,793 and request the additional project funding in the amount of $1,873,469 from the MPO through our direct attributable funds. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Kozlowski? Yes, Mr. Anderson?
Mike, this came up obviously at our last MPO meeting, and so this basically you found another pot of money. Is it, or we're applying for one, or we're trying to the 1.8? Is that right?
Yes, that would be the current allocation of our direct attributable funds that we have remaining on our account for the current fiscal year. And so the 80% would be the federal MPO money, and the 331,586 would be the local match required to match those funds.
So I remember the whole board had some heartburn about. They were like, y'all are the ones paying for it, so you and Charlie worry about it with your council. So this will ease that.
The county has come to the table and indicated a willingness to contribute 50% of that difference.
But the $1.8 million, let's go back to $1.8 million. That's not new money. That's not to the conversation last month at MPO.
That's still the money that we would need from the MPO, and we would have to come back to the MPO board and ask for their support to allocate that 1.8.
So from start to finish here, the city's contribution will be approximately what?
Well, the city had already contributed $766, and so with an additional $136,000, it's about $900,000.
Okay. Why did I have the figure over $5 million?
Well, that would be the overall project cost that we've identified, and that includes a significant 30% cost for inflation because we continue to see inflation. That also includes the 15% contingency, design and contract administration costs to hire our architect to handle that. Also furniture, and then NCDOT charges us fees, 5% for the cost. One of the things I will say is I'm trying to be conservative because I don't want to come back up here again and try to ask for more money. If I do, I don't think I will be the one that's back up here. I think that I'll be somebody else. So I'm trying to make sure that we have the amount to cover it.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Mr. Rivenbarn?
That was an interesting discussion we had down there, and just to refresh my memory, I just looked real quick. The size of that building, the finished product would be, was it about 7,200 square feet?
Yes, Councilman Rivenbark, 7,200 square feet.
And I did some quick back of the envelope math that day, and we were looking at somewhere around $790 per square foot.
That is correct.
And prior to that, it was bantered about, and I know this, I'm going to ask a question I already know the answer to, but we can't tear that building down and start over and build something more reasonable, because the building that we're going to renovate, that's where the grant's coming from, the reason for.
That's correct. The STPGP funds can be utilized to rehab the structure and renovate it.
And it just sometimes, we need to feel like we're spending our money instead of this money that comes from wherever. But, $794 a square foot is tacky, at the end of the day. But if that's what everybody wants to do, I guess we go ahead and do it. How much space do you and your group occupy across the street, square foot wise?
I don't know the exact number, but I would say it's somewhere roughly around 3,500, 4,000 square feet, somewhere in that realm. But that also does not include a boardroom, in which was a discussion at the MPO board meeting that, this building will also include a boardroom, dedicated board meeting space for the MPO board.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Any other questions? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Well, if there are no other questions or concerns, what are the wishes of council? We have a little technical difficulty here. You can just tell me. Oh, okay. We have a motion by Mr. Spears and a second by Mr. Anderson. All in favor of that signify by saying aye. Aye. So, okay, so that's unanimous. We're having a little technical difficulty here. R3, item R3 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for the Ncem Emergency Management Transportation Infrastructure Resiliency Fund grant in the amount of $482,000. And at this time, I'd like to recognize the city manager, Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Captain Matt Ingram with the Police Department will overview this item for us.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem.
Captain,
members
welcome.
of Council. We are seeking this amount. It is a no-match fund, so I'd like to make that important point. It is a no-match fund. I brought with me a short presentation. It's about 3.5 minutes. It will explain exactly what we're looking for, and then I'll answer any, questions you may have afterwards.
Thank you.
I am at Military and Eastwood, which is one of our busiest intersections in the city, and I'm also dressed with my traffic vest and my hat on. And these lights today are doing great because they're functioning properly like they're supposed to. But during hurricanes and other incidents, when the lights go out, this is a pretty big intersection, and when the lights are out, it causes us to have to put police officers in the intersection directing traffic. And there's several disadvantages to that. One, you can only put them out there on a hot, humid day or cold day for 20 minutes at a time. So this intersection normally takes 2 to 3 officers, so you would require a 4th and 5th officer to relieve them. And that is not the best utilization of our resources as a police department. Also, directing traffic is very dangerous. Throughout this country, countless officers are injured each year out while they're controlling traffic. So one of the innovative ideas that we came up with as a city was to utilize generator backup power when the intersections are down. So I am proud to say that the City Council has supported us on purchasing generators. We're going to pre-wire 37 intersections this budget year where if the power does go out, we don't have to put our men and women out directing traffic. We can still allow our city to operate efficiently and effectively through generator power. This project has been a passion of mine for quite some time. About 25 years ago, believe it or not, I was a young Wilmington police officer, and we had 2 hurricanes hit this community, Fran and Bertha. And for 2 weeks, I directed traffic for 12 hours a day. And I made a pledge as a young officer, if I'm ever in a position where I can do something to avoid officers having to direct traffic and to make our city flow more smoothly, I would. And several years back when I was the captain over support services, I started pushing the idea of utilizing backup generators to power our intersections. Through a partnership with our city traffic and engineering and NCDOT, we were able to make that happen this year. In addition to the intersections being able to be powered by a generator, they can also be powered by an inverter in some of our patrol cars.
The total amount of the grant that we are requesting is $462,000. This grant money is going to be used to purchase multiple items for traffic flow and traffic safety, specifically during power outages from ice storms, hurricanes, and then the occasional traffic crash that takes out an intersection, a power box intersection, things like that. What we're doing is we currently have 43 intersections in the city that are capable of being run off of generator power, and we have plans in the works to do additional intersections every year. What our goal is to have an additional 188 intersections completed so that we can have generator power available to any of these intersections as they go down during storms. If we work that out of our operating budget, that will take us approximately 7 to 10 years to complete that project. This grant would allow us to complete this project most likely by February of 2023 and have all of those intersections completed. In addition to the switch boxes that go at each intersection, the chief would like us to attempt to acquire 35 additional generators to add to the 25 that we currently have. So we'll have 60 generators, and he'd like to acquire a vehicle specific to transport those generators to and from the intersections, as well as portable stop signs, cones for creating large roundabouts, which we've been able to do at College and Oleander when the lights are out. If for some reason one of those intersections is not capable of being powered by a generator or an inverter in a car, we will have extra cones available to go ahead and set up traffic circles, portable stop signs, yield signs, safety lighting that would be portable to those intersections as well.
Great.
So any questions you may have, I'll try to answer.
Thank you. Anybody have some questions? Mr. Spears?
Captain Ingram, have we thought about solar power?
We have several trailers that we move around the city. Maybe you've seen them. They're notification trailers. They also have a radar unit on them. They are solar powered. As far as these intersections go, I can't say that we have, and I don't know that it is a possible thing right now, but I can't give you a definite answer. I know that right now we have 43 intersections that are currently set up, and they work beautifully off of the generator power as well as off of the inverters in the cars.
No, I think it's a great idea, but I think if we went solar, that would be that much greater because it doesn't require you to do.
I do not disagree with you, sir. Yes.
You know, you see the lights with the little solar panels
Yes.
on them, so
Yes.
I just thought that might be something. And I know Donnie likes toys. He says it all the time. He loves
toys?
He
Yes, he
loves
does.
toys. He
Yes,
loves
he does.
gadgets. So
We have some great toys, thanks to the chief and you. So we appreciate it.
So,
this
you know,
is
I just
something
thought
else
if-
that we're hoping to acquire.
yeah, if you looked into that or did some research on that, that would really be great. I think
we
that'd
will.
be
We will.
pretty
I think it's a
innovative
good
for our
suggestion.
city.
Good suggestion. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson?
I couldn't resist. You mentioned a dedicated truck vehicle for this.
Sir.
So I envision a vehicle that sits there for 340 days a year or more and does nothing. I mean, which kind of not optimal.
I understand.
I mean, is there a way to have that vehicle do something else, and then when a hurricane approaches, cross-train it, so to speak? I mean, flip it? Or
Well, that vehicle, with the way traffic is in Wilmington, you'd be surprised at the number of intersections that go down on a weekly basis where we are required to direct traffic. And if these were in place, these switch boxes, we could easily, that truck, we can justify the use of that truck. And that truck, what we're planning to do is something similar to like a beverage truck with external roll-up doors on the outsides, where we wouldn't go into the truck to get our stuff. We'd be pulling it off the outsides of the truck. Truck would be maintained by our mobile command post unit that does weekly startups and maintenance on all these vehicles. So
it's going to get
honestly,
year-round use.
Yes, sir. It's going to get used quite a bit. Even though we may not have an ice storm or a hurricane, is definitely going to be used. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We currently have a trailer where we keep our, but it's completely out of space. It's not very large, and this would allow us to move all those items to those intersections without having to find a pickup truck also that's dedicated to be able to pull that trailer as well.
Any other questions for Captain Ingram? Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thank
it. We have a motion by Mr. Rivenbark to approve and a second by Mr. Spears. All in favor of that signify by saying aye. Aye. And that passes unanimously. At this time, we'll move to reports. We have RP1, which is the Council's Appointments Committee for Boards and Commissions, and I'll recognize Mr. Rivenbark, the chair of that committee.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I chair the Appointments to Boards, Commissions, and Committees Committee, along with Councilman Luke Waddell and Councilman Neil Anderson. We met on February the 28th of this year and made the following appointments. To the Municipal Services District, the MSD Advisory Committee, we have appointed Ryan Belcher to represent nightlife. On the Wilmington, New Hanover County Commission for Women, I'm sorry, let me go back to Mr. Belcher. His term will expire on 7/1/2024. On the Wilmington New Hanover County Commission for Women, we have reappointed Bridget Tarrant. Her term will now expire on February the 18th, 2025. We have reappointed Jane Bernbach. Her term will expire on February the 18th, 2025. Downtown Park and Advisory Committee, we have appointed McKay Siegel. That term will expire on August the 20th of 2023. On our Sister City Commission, at long last, we have someone from representing the North Carolina State Ports, Mrs. Christina Hollings, and her term will expire on September 1, 2024. And with that, I would like to see a motion to approve those.
We have a motion by Mr. Anderson and a second by Mr. Spears. All in favor of that signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that passes unanimously. That concludes our regular agenda. At this point, are there any items to be brought to council by the city manager, by the city attorney?
No items.
Madam Clerk? No. Mr. Spears?
Yep, one thing, I just want to say happy birthday to my little niece, Ellie Menendez. Turned the big 4 today. Happy birthday, Ellie.
Mr. Anderson?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Mr. Rivenbark?
Ma'am, yesterday afternoon, Councilman Spears and myself, we attended a ceremony at the room 317 in the old courthouse. It was for service above self, and there were 18 police officers who were recognized, and over the past 12 months, past year, they have sometimes in tandem with 2 or 3 others, sometimes alone, they encountered situations where deadly force could have been used and would have been called for. And due to the training that they have gone through our police department, they were able to either talk people down or go the extra mile. And as a result of that, no one was shot and no loss of life. And real proud of that, because, you hear so many times people talk about policemen just, quickly pulling out a gun and killing people. And here in the city of Wilmington, Donnie Williams, our chief, was very proud of it. Ben David started this, and it was a very moving ceremony, and they're to be commended. All of our police officers, they encounter every day when they get up and put that badge on, they write a check, and we should be very thankful and appreciative of that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rivenbark, and thank you for your interest in city government. At this point, we stand adjourned.